Hey folks, my name's John, but my friends call me Izzy, and you can too. This is Izzy's Painting Workshop. Welcome back, folks. So today we're going to be returning to painting the orc that we'd started in the first episode, and we will be blocking out some colors, and I'm also going to show you some techniques, a technique called glazing. That'll be at the later part of the video. Yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so to start with, we're just going to paint all the parts on our model that are either going to be black or metallic, and we're just going to black them out. Here you can see we're painting the gun, and we're going to paint behind the guy's legs, and in all the little spots where he's going to be either black or metallic. Alright, so now that we've got the black down, we're going to move on and we're going... Wait a minute. Something happened. Oh no. Oh no.
I am the footage goblin, and I have taken all of the blue painting footage. You will never see it again.
Okay, well, that happened. So, as the footage goblin said, all of the footage of the blue portions of the model that I painted has been lost and is gone. The goblin took the footage, and you can't get it back from him, because if you do, you have to go into his lair, and every time you do, he takes a pinky, and I have no pinkies left, so I can't get the footage. But fear not, because in future episodes, we will be covering blue again. Like when we do these guys. Closer in there for you. Panoceania remotes, the new ones. So that's not going to be the next video. There might be a few videos down the road because there are some other things I want to work on, but fear not, there will be more blue. In the meantime, in the next part of the segment, we're going to be going over green, and specifically we're going to be using a technique called glazing. And with that technique, it gives smooth transitions of color or smooth transitions from dark to light or both, and we'll go over how to do that. We'll also very, very briefly go over panel lining and edge highlighting. So, alright, let's get into it. Okay, so here we have our paints, and the first paint is Golden Olive. These are all from the Vallejo range, medium olive. And this one, the label is worn off. It should say yellow olive. It doesn't look yellow, but it's yellow olive. It's the darkest. This is back when Vallejo used to release color triads. You use them to highlight and complement each other. And to start, we're just going to pick our mid-tone, and we're using wet palette. And just go over the paldrons. With the mid-tone, we're going to do a light coat, a couple of light coats so that we don't build up any texture. Let the camera get in focus. And then we're going to add black and ice yellow to our palette. We'll be using those also. But right now we're going to take our highlight color and cover the center of the pauldron, which is where we want the highlight to show the most. That's going to be our highlight color. So that's where the plane of light is on the pauldron, so that's where we highlight. And if you notice, the color is fairly wet and we're pulling from the side to the center. And here you can see this is what it should look like. Now we're taking the yellow olive and we're going to paint the sides where we want the darker parts of the pauldron to be. And we're not going too crazy with this color, but we do want to have some contrast. Here you see we're just touching the sides. And we want to get a nice gradient. Don't worry about being too smooth now, because we're going to do a technique called glazing later to bring things more into focus, to snap the colors more in together, and to have a better color gradient. Alright, and here you can see we're taking our mid-tone and we're watering it down a lot. And we're going to use it as a bit of a wash to try and smooth out some of those gradations we put on earlier. This is also called glazing. This is a bit wetter than a normal glaze is, but we'll get into that later. But we're just pulling it, you see, from the center where it's lighter, we pull it into the dark spots that we want darker, because the directionality matters. When you lift your brush off, it deposits a little bit of the paint that you're using. So you want to pull off in the darker spot. And with glazing in general, if you can, it's better off to put your light colors down first and glaze down darker. And on this guy, you can see on this pauldron, there's a very easy color gradient, because there's a very notable line where the light and dark are. But you see we're just pulling that up into the color gradient we want. And you just keep going back and forth with this until you get the gradient you want. It takes time and it takes a lot of layers to do, but it's worth it in the end because you get a nice result. And the nice thing about using a wet palette is that it keeps your colors wet, so you can work with them for much longer. It's not a panacea, but I find them useful. And a lot of people use them. So this is more glazing. You can see I touched the wet paint to the paper towel to wick off most of the moisture. And now we're going over the same place that we hit earlier with the heavier glaze. This is more of a controlled technique, and basically you do a lot of layers of this and it'll help you get a very good, very smooth transition. This technique is useful for a lot of other things. It's a building foundation technique. For you use it especially for things like non-metallic metal and just having smooth blends in general. And here you can see we're watering down a little bit our highlight color, and you just keep going back and forth. It's not necessarily a quick process, but it's an effective process. And here you can see the result of that blending. And you can see that's a nice smooth transition from the lights to the darks. You can see a very smooth gradient. At this point you can't see because it's off camera, but I'm mixing some of the dark olive, the yellow olive with some black, because I want to black line that little section on the top of the pauldron where you see there's a second layer, and I want to do a panel line in there so you get the paint nice and thin, and you take a very sharp brush and you do the best you can to get in the detail without wrecking what you've already done. And do the best you can to have hand control, but even I make mistakes, and you just, no big deal, you just go back in and you clean up after yourself. That's the nice thing about having all your colors on the wet palette, is you can go back in and clean up your mistakes. Alright, now we're taking that ice yellow and mixing it with our highlight color, and we're going to do a little bit of edge highlighting. And with this we're also mixing in a little bit of flow improver, just to keep everything moving nicely and flowing nicely off of the brush when we're doing this, because this is a fairly delicate process. And as you can see, I'm testing it on the back of my hand first so that I know I've got the right consistency. And you just use the edge of the tip of the brush to go over and highlight the edges, the very edges of the armor, because light tends to collect at the edges. And here we have our final result. I also did some scratching on it. I'm not going into weathering in this particular episode, so don't worry about that. And here we have a closer look, and you can see the blends, you can see the edge highlighting that was done, and yeah, that's a mini. Alright, so we've reached the end of the video, and if you liked the music today's episode, the opening theme song and also the background music during the painty parts were all written by Doom Driver, and there'll be a link to that band in the link section below. If you liked the video, please hit like and subscribe and ring the little bell thing so that you can be alerted to future episodes. Once again, thanks for watching this one, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye guys.